Why can't we see anything? What? Oh, is the camera looking at the... Oh. Oh my God. Hi there. Can we start again? No, we're just gonna go. We've had some technical things to learn about Facebook Live this morning, so if you experienced this where you are here, I don't know if anyone's out there or not, but don't feel bad if you try to do this yourself and you have to do it a few times to get it right.
We all have business skills that we need to learn.
So, here we go. Music to Musicpreneur. Musician to Musicpreneur. What is it? Why are we here? Well, from my perspective, in the last couple of years in developing the ProMusicDB database, I've really seen that there's such a disconnect between the industry that musicians work in and the music organizations that we're a member of, kind of watering down information to who the musicians are and how it affects them. So my goal in developing Musician to Musicpreneur classes and this challenge really has to do with helping musicians connect more to the landscape of the industry, as well as feeding their personal well, because I've been in business courses where I just feel like I'm the only musician in the room, no one understands my industry, and I can set goals, but no one really cares because they don't really understand my industry and how hard it is to get the littlest thing done. So that's kind of why I started Musician to Musicpreneur. And my friend Cindy here has her own Musicpreneur history.
Well, I thought this course was a great idea because I think between the two of us, we've worked in so many different areas of the music business, from film and TV scoring to touring to session work to musical theater. I thought surely we have something to teach people about all these different areas. And number two, I am often guilty of letting the business aspects of my business be the last thing on the list. So I thought, wow, a 6-week challenge where I can set a goal would be great. I can learn more about the latest changes in copyright. I can get that website changed. All kinds of things.
So that's what Musician to Musicpreneur Challenge is all about, and kind of the concept behind being a musicpreneur, because these days you can't just be a musician, you have to know about the business. So we're trying to combine it into a program and then move forward into courses. So my goal today was to give you a little mini course on some music industry topics. The first thing we're going to talk about has to do with more just like broad stroke music industry info on what organizations do, how they function, how they pay you, and how what you do interacts with what they do. And then Cindy here, tell them what you're going to talk about.
I have a lot of people ask about the world of TV scoring and just what is a week like? What is the day-to-day working week like? So I thought I would talk a little bit about that.
And then lastly, we're going to talk about that infamous thing called networking. And industry networking now is also online as well as it is offline. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we've discovered works for people that approach us to network, and hopefully things that we've learned through the years, not that we're perfect at it, but what to do and what not to do as far as getting work. So who's out there? Anyone watching? Anyone around today?
We see this person.
Okay.
Oh, see more.
Okay. So we have a few people online. Thanks for joining us. So the first, our first subject has to do with what do you know about copyright and licensing? You may not be a music creator, but you may be a session player. However, I do believe that your performance, Tina, hi Tina from Northridge. How are you, Tina? Thank you for joining us today. I hope we give you some valuable information. Tina, are you, tell us about your music career really quick. What do you do in music? Can you type what you do? She might be behind us. Okay.
We'll have to come back.
All right, we'll come back,
Tina.
Okay. So I get asked a lot, people say, can I pick your brain about, music law or copyright, or what should I do? And so I found this really great resource online that I posted about a couple days ago But the Future Music Coalition, if you don't know about them, they're a really great advocacy organization, and they have a bunch of quizzes that I thought would be really great. Oh, thank you, Tina. Yes, Tina's a percussionist who plays more live shows. Welcome, Tina. Thanks for being here for us today. So if, skipping back to what we're doing, so I thought that these quizzes, I do them live with you and with Cindy, and kind of impart some really, I think, just core information about copyright and how music industry operates with copyright, and how you as a musician need to be concerned about copyright. So here we go. Oh,
Brian is on. Hi, Brian.
hi, Brian. We have Brian on today. Excellent. So first, let me give you some helpful hints. Remember that a recording has two copyrights. We have the musical composition, and then we have the sound recording. The musical composition encodes the notes and lyrics, and the sound recording, which is the recorded performance of the musical composition. So, ASCAP BMI and CSAC are the U.S.-based performance rights organizations that represent songwriters and publishers and collect royalties based on public performance of compositions and distribute those royalties to their songwriter, composer, and publisher members. Sound Exchange is the U.S.-based nonprofit that collects digital performance royalties based on the performance of the sound recording and distributes those royalties to the performers and the sound recording copyright owner, which is usually a label. The Harry Fox Agency represents many publishers and issues mechanical licenses for the reproduction and distribution of compositions. It collects and distributes mechanical royalties for any U.S. music publishers. AFM and SAG-AFTRA are the main musician-related unions, at least in the United States. Most of these unions serve as conduits for some of the revenue streams. So with that,
I have a question.
Yes.
Some people might wonder, what are mechanicals?
Well, I have that right here. This is from the Harry Fox website. So I'm importing, hopefully if you don't get all of this, you can at least go to some of these websites and check it out for yourself. So from the Harry Fox website, here is their description of a mechanical license. A mechanical license grants the rights to reproduce and distribute copyrighted musical compositions, which are songs, on CDs, tapes, ringtones, permanent digital downloads, interactive streams, and other digital configurations, supporting various business models, including locker-based music services and bundled music offerings. If you want to record and distribute a song that you don't own or control, or if your business requires the distribution of music that was written by others, you need to obtain a mechanical license. A mechanical license does not include the use of a song in a video. That use requires a synchronization license, which you will need to obtain by contacting the publishers directly. Okay? So, on with the quiz. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, here we go. First, Cindy.
Yes.
When you write an original song or composition, at what point is the work protected by copyright?
What are my choices?
A, you file the copyright notice with the U.S. Copyright Office. B, as soon as you perform it publicly for the first time. C, as soon as you register the song with your PRO. Or D, as soon as you fix it for the first time, whether it's on a piece of paper, a digital recorder, or recorded simultaneously with transmission.
I know this one. It's as soon as you fix it for the first time.
Correct. Under the current copyright law in the United States, a work is automatically protected by copyright when it is created and fixed. A work is protected as soon as it is fixed in any tangible medium, whether it's written on a piece of paper or recorded while you perform it. While registering a composition with the Copyright Office has many advantages, it is not required for copyright protection under the present law.
And I've heard all kinds of rumors about this floating around. I've heard that you have to mail it to yourself with a stamp on it, and that's just as good as getting it copyrighted, or it's not protected until you register it at the Copyright Office. So it's good to
Know that.
have a nice, clear
Yes,
answer.
that is a clear answer. What is confusing is who enforces that copyright and who pays for the enforcement of copyright. So that can be a whole other conversation. Oh, yes, Tina's asking, can you explain what fixed really means?
As soon as it's either recorded in your home studio or you write it out and make a piece of sheet music.
It's the finished version. So in other words, what you send into the Copyright Office or what you perform or what you intend to have performed, that would be the fixed version. It's not like the 8 bars that you're going to stick in as part of the bridge. It's like the completed, like you're not going to rewrite the lyric. It's the done form for you. Okay, here's another one. So a musician, you, with a home studio, makes a recording of a few songs that you wrote. At what point is the sound recording protected by copyright? The choices are A, as soon as you file a copyright notice with the Copyright Office. B, as soon as the recordings are played in public. C, as soon as it is fixed for the first time, whether it's analog tape, a digital recorder, or recorded simultaneously with its transmission. Or D, as soon as the performer makes a deal with the record label to release it commercially.
I'm going to say the same thing, as soon as it's fixed for the first time.
Yes, you are correct. Under the current U.S. copyright law, work is automatically protected by copyright when it is created and fixed, and that includes the sound recording. Okay, moving on. True or false? Songs and compositions must be registered with the U.S. Copyright Office before they can be released commercially. A, true. B, false.
False.
Correct. False. While many songwriters choose to register their works with the U.S. Copyright Office because it establishes a public record of a copyright claim and will permit additional damages if infringed, neither registration in the U.S. Copyright Office nor publication is required for copyright protection under the law. Under the present copyright law, a work is automatically protected by copyright when it is created and fixed. All right, moving on. Anyone have a question out there? Any more questions? Okay, moving on. Question 4. ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC, the U.S.-based organizations that collect royalties based on the performance of a musical composition, distribute royalties to A, songwriters, composers, and publishers, B, performers and record labels, C, songwriters, composers, and performers, and D, songwriters, composers, and record labels.
Songwriters and composers and lyricists. What was that? And publishers.
Correct, correct. Songwriters, composers, and publishers is the correct answer. The explanation. In the U.S., 3 PROs, that's ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC, collect royalties based on the public performance of compositions and distribute those royalties to the songwriter, composer, and publisher. The PROs do not collect or distribute royalties to performers unless the songwriter is also the performer, which happens frequently, or to the record labels that release the sound recording. So that's a clarification between the PRO's function and the union's function. If you have if you've written a song that you've performed, you're only getting paid from the PROs based on the performance of the composition, not on your performance, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's do one more, and because this has to do about sound exchange, and then we're going to move on to Cindy's portion of today. Sound Exchange is the U.S.-based nonprofit that collects digital performance royalties based on the performance of a sound recording and distributes those royalties to the performers and the sound recording copyright owner, which is usually a record label. How much does it cost for a performer to join Sound Exchange? A, $0. B, a $65 one-time fee. C, $30 per year. Or D, $100.
It's a bargain at $0.
You are correct. It is free for both performers and sound recording copyright owners to register with Sound Exchange. Okay. So I lied. I'm going to do like one more bonus thing because I think it has to do with cover songs. So, question number 6. A U.S.-based band is recording an album of material they wrote, but wants one of the tracks to be a cover of the Rolling Stones song Brown Sugar, written by Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. Who do they need to get permission from before recording this cover? This is a hard one. It says who here. Okay. A, the Rolling Stones via their manager. B, the Rolling Stones publisher. C, the Rolling Stones record label. D, they do not need to get advance permission to record this cover. What's your answer?
And this is one that is always confusing. I'm going to say they do not need permission.
You are correct.
To record it.
To record it, they do not need permission. The explanation. the band does not need to get advance permission from the band, label, or publisher to go in the studio to record the song. But they do need to get a mechanical license from the Rolling Stones publisher within 30 days of recording before distributing or selling it. This can be done quickly and easily through online services like Limelight or via Harry Fox. Why is there no advance permission required?
I don't know. Tell me.
The U.S. Copyright Act states that once a copyright owner has recorded and distributed a work publicly, a compulsory mechanical license is available to anyone who wants to record and distribute the work in the U.S., as long as the artist doing the cover pays a mechanical license fee at the statutory compulsory rate. Note that the process that we just described applies for distributions inside the United States only. Outside the U.S., artists and bands seeking to record or distribute covers will go through a different licensing process. Okay, so we start to get a little layered there. Okay.
Now, there's one more issue around that I found confusing. If you record a cover song and you're giving it away to your fans, if you're not going to charge any money, since you don't have to pay anything, any part of your profits to the songwriters and publishers, do you still need to get the mechanical license?
You still need to get the permission. Yes, you do. The answer is yes. And we will go much more into that maybe next week if we do this again. All right, Cindy, I'd love to get your segment going. So,
sure.
What are we talking about today?
I am talking about, I'm going to scoot more into
Thank you,
Brian.
Brian. I appreciate that. Oh, Brian
he
has
has
a
a
copyright
question.
question, but I didn't see that. Do you want to ask it now? Are you still here?
Maybe he's typing.
Okay, well, Brian, type it in for us. I apologize that we didn't catch it right off the bat. All right, Cindy.
Oh, no, here it is.
Oh.
Do you have to have both paper and sound separately copyrighted, or does doing only secure copyright for both? What about arrangements?
That's a good question. You do need to file both the PA, Performing Arts copyright, the PA, and the sound recording, the SR copyright with the Copyright Office to have both versions copywritten. What about arrangements? That's a very good question. You can copyright arrangements. It's the payment of which and paying the original composer that is what you need to negotiate, and there are set rates for some of those types of uses. So that is a really pretty layered question, and that's a good one, and that is one that maybe I can have a more formal answer for so that I don't take up Cindy's time today. Does that answer at least part of your question, Brian, for today? So you do need the PA and the SR copyrights at the Copyright Office. And the arrangements can be copywritten with, with certain permissions in place. Okay.
Cool.
Next.
I thought I would talk about the weekly workflow of writing for TV, because I get a lot of questions from either friends who work mostly in films where you have a lot more time and a lot more freedom to go back and forth and change your mind, or from songwriter friends or composer friends who say, what is it like to work in TV? Is this something I might be interested in? Maybe you'd like to find out what the day-to-day workflow is like before trying to do it. So just as in film, the first thing that you do is you meet with the filmmakers for what's called a spotting session, which is when you decide where music is going to go, when it's going to start, and when it's going to stop. Now, if you're on a tight weekly schedule, like the show I'm working on now, Once Upon a Time, they usually have already put in temp music, what's called temp music. It's music from another source, from another film, or music that you wrote from a few episodes ago. They've already sort of given their idea of here's what we think the score should be like. Usually it's too much, and you have to take some out. And sometimes you need to explain to them why wall-to-wall music isn't the best approach, because whenever music starts or music stops, that is an event that is saying something, that is sort of giving importance to that moment. So sometimes that's a good argument to give for why there's too much damn music in this scene. So after you spot it, you decide where music goes, and everybody's in agreement. On our show, we're now in season 5, we're about to start season 6, so we have a music editor, God bless him, who has a giant database of everything we've ever written for the show. And since each week there's about 48 minutes of music, we have Justin and Mike cut in about half of that, because there's just not humanly, it's just not humanly possible to write and record that much music in a week. So the next thing we do is we sit down with them and we decide all right, which of these can you do from the existing library? And which ones, if it's a new character or a new theme, it's probably something that has to be written fresh. So then, we are very fortunate on this show to have live orchestra every week. There's still a handful of shows that do this, and God bless them, it's a wonderful thing. So we have, every week there's a question of, are we going to need any special instruments beyond what we usually have, which is, I believe, 24 strings, 2 winds, 1 horn, and 1 harp. For example, we had Merida, the girl from Brave, was a special character, and so we had all this. They had all this great Scottish music in the temp. Some of it was from Braveheart, and a lot of it had bagpipes and alien pipes. and the samples are okay, but we thought, wouldn't it be great if we had a live bagpipe player? So we did. So we brought him in, and of course there are different ranges, and there are different tunings and different things scales that it can and can't play, the different kinds of bagpipes. So we got a great chart from the player. Usually the best thing to do is to ask, if you have a special instrument, to ask the player, what's the range, what areas are strong and weak, what do I want to stay away from? As I found the first time I wrote something for oboe, when the session player came in, he said, I had a session this morning and they wrote everything really low. Everything was for B and C, and it just sounds like a duck quacking. And I started laughing and said, well, you're not going to like this part any better, because I did some of that too. But fortunately, we all can learn. Mm-hmm. If anybody has questions, by the way, please feel free to type them in, and I will answer.
If you just joined us, Cindy was talking about her kind of weekly workflow on the TV show Once Upon a Time. So if you have anything kind of related to composer workflow or how they operate or work, that's kind of the portion that we're on right now in class.
Yeah. So now, all right, so you've decided where music is going to go, which part the music editor is going to do, which part you're going to do. We have a team structure on our show, so there's a little bit of splitting up of who's going to do what. Mm-hmm. And let's see, so the next thing is the time. Sometimes there's 1 episode a week, which gets a little crazy, and we're fortunate enough to have orchestrators, so we don't have to we do as much as we can of the orchestration. We try to do as full of a sketch as we can, but thank God someone else is doing the final thing. So if the session is, say, Tuesday night, we try to turn everything in to the orchestrators by Sunday night. Wow. So that and they're incredibly fast. And they also have a team. If it gets to be, it's usually 1 or 2 guys, but if it gets to be too much for them, they have guy number 3, guy number 4.
Do you have a minute per day that you try to get done? I mean, out of the 48, what do you guys try to stay around, like, in that time frame?
That is a good question. Well, usually, if we've recorded Tuesday night, we'll start the next one on Wednesday. So I just sort of count back from, all right, I've got to have everything approved and in by Sunday night. So it usually ends up being 2.5 to 3 minutes a day.
Neat.
Sometimes I just try to do the biggest, gnarliest cue first, knowing that it might take 2 days, and then it's kind of different every week.
Okay. Neat.
How do you share what you were working on with each other, the orchestrators? Do you have to be in the studio for corrections? Well, luckily, by the time we get to the session, we've made sure that everything is approved. During the week, as soon as we write something, we'll make a QuickTime video of it, send it to the producers or showrunners or whoever the approval person is, and they will that's when they come back with any notes or corrections. Most of the time, I'd say 95% of the time, it's all approved when it gets to the stage. Sometimes there are notes after that, and then we have a music editor. Here, take that, Justin. And how do we share what we're working on with each other? We have a Dropbox. that we put everything in. We have a folder for this week's episode. We have a Google Doc that we share with the orchestrators and the assistants, and they mark down for each. There's a list of all the cues so they can mark off this one's been approved, this one's been orchestrated, sort of the check boxes along the way. Do we have to edit the sound to QuickTime or does someone else? That is, that's a good question too. I usually record, I have a separate computer with Pro Tools, so I usually record from Logic into Pro Tools and set the levels going in so that, so I have the dialogue and the effects on the video already, and then I can decide how loud or quiet the music is going to be against the scene. Is that what you meant? When we're making the QuickTimes to get stuff approved?
Let us know, Brian. Yeah.
So what else? All right, so you're writing, you're doing your 2 or 3 minutes a day. Yes. Oh, good. That is what he meant. When you have corrections, maybe that is a good thing to do. It's always tempting to think, oh my God, they don't like it. I just need to completely start from scratch. And one thing I've learned from assisting other composers, sometimes it's amazing how little you have to change, and it will solve all of their problems. So, for example, if they say this cue is too fast, it's not this. There's too much going on, and it's too busy, and it's taking away from the scene. Sometimes you don't have to change the tempo and the structure and the whole layout of it. Sometimes it's just, we'll take out that little shaker. Let's take out some of the things that might feel busy to them.
So you have to interpret kind of how it hits non-musicians that can't really describe what they're hearing, but they might describe it in a different way.
Definitely, and this could be a whole entire day of communicating with directors and the non-musicians, and some of them know quite a lot about music, and some of them get frustrated and say, well, I don't know how to speak the musical language, but usually you can explain to them, I don't need to hear about crescendos and eighth notes. I just need to hear about emotions, about what do you want this scene to feel like.
That's a great tip. That's really interesting. That's
yeah,
a great tip for people to take away.
And try to get really specific with the emotions. Is this scene melancholy? Is it heartbreaking? Is it utter despair? Rather than just, well, it's sad. You kind of find what's the degree of sadness. And then other things that help in the communication are things like pace. Rather than, sometimes they think that pace means tempo, but it doesn't always. Sometimes it just means musical intensity, or how fast the chords are changing. So you can ask them, well, does the pace of this scene feel right? Does it need to be more amped up or more laid back?
So communication, I think, is a key thing. We were going to talk about that. Is now a good time to transition, or do you have anything you want to wrap up?
That's pretty much it. And then you show up at the session and give comments to the players. And sometimes it went by so fast you don't even remember what you wrote that week.
And how long is a session?
We usually have 3 hours.
For how much music?
I think we try to cap it off at 22 minutes. Which is quite a lot, but the LA players are burning.
Yes.
They
are.
The most difficult cue, if they read it once and it's not perfect, the next time it will be.
Thank you, Tina.
Yay!
We're trying.
It's always fun to bring friends to the session because they will ask questions like, well, how long did they get to rehearse on this? And the answer is, they didn't. We just plopped it down in front of them and they're playing it. It's always amazing.
So moving into transitioning, we want to talk today a little bit about networking, which is really key in our business. We all know that and need networking skills. But also, I wanted to touch on the fact that it's moved from a physical one-on-one, like being in a room with a person networking, also to an online kind of networking now that with Facebook and email and a lot of groups on Facebook and kind of online forums, there's much more opportunity to network and a much more opportunity to mess up networking.
You are visible.
Yes. So I want to talk about that a little bit. Two takeaways I'd like folks to think about is, one, when you're online, anything you put out there as a musician, especially if you're in a marketable position, meaning you're you're trying to also get work, but then you're looking at your online presence as a, I just do this online, no one sees it, just my friends, this type of thing. Well, I'm going to warn you to be careful about what you say and do online, because it affects how people view you. So if you may have a complete stranger be in a forum online with you, that you, on the other side of the world, you've never met them. But we all know in the music world, it is very small. And sooner or later, you might meet that person in person and actually be asking them for a gig, or be telling them I'm available, which is another thing we'll talk about. But that comment, whether it was off the mark or maybe inappropriate, might ring a bell in the back of someone's mind. So from an online networking perspective, some people are careful about this, some people don't care. But I think more and more as we move forward, and I know in my own experience in hiring people, even hiring people in conjunction with a director for, say, a musical, the first thing we do is look you up online. It just happens. Look you up where you are on Facebook. If you belong to any forums, it all shows up on your profile. And if something strikes us as odd, or you started posting a bunch of weird cat videos, doing things with your cats, not the cat videos are bad, but you know what I'm saying, like inappropriate, then we're going to question, we're going to question your ability to be professional in the environment that we need you to be in. So I just want to put that out there from an online forum perspective. The second thing online I want to talk about is the emailing and friending people on Facebook as a form of networking. We all have to get out there and we all have to market our skills, but there is a way to do it and be more of a light touch type of networker. We are getting hit by so much information on a day-to-day basis, online and offline. So just keep in mind when you email someone that you don't know, that you're looking to try to get work from, or to be recognized by that person, to be considered for work in the future, you are one of hundreds that they probably hear from on a monthly basis. And how do you stand out from that without being the guy raising your hand saying, I need work, because that's what it all translates to. Hey, I just wanted to let you know I did this, is really not a valuable way to connect with someone. What I've found operates a lot better, at least when I receive it a lot better, is if someone finds out a project that I've been working on and then emails me about it. Say, you don't know me, but I saw you were working on this, and I'd really love to know about that process. Or I'm looking at doing something similar. Could we sit and have coffee? Then that my person might become someone that I feel more connected to and will pop in my mind if the appropriate situation would arise that I can help them out or refer them for something. So I just want to pass that little tip on. It's an odd place to be if we all look at each other as business people, that you're constantly, basically, I don't have anything for sale, but people are coming into an office to think about it, saying, I want to sell you, I'm not buying, I'm not selling, I'm just here, And if someone keeps walking in and saying, I want to sell you this, I want to sell you this, and you're like, no, I don't. I'm not really likely to think of that person in the future on a level that I feel comfortable, if I even bring them into an environment where I've hired them, that they wouldn't try and poach my contacts or try to take over my gig, because that's what they did to get on mine. So just some things to kind of keep in mind from my perspective, from an online, both in online forums and watching your P's and Q's when you comment in social forums online, and also when you email people, to not be so harsh about saying, hey, here's my stuff and check it out. I'm looking for work type of thing. It's more or less, what are you? I find the better route is, how are you doing? I saw you were doing this project. I'm really interested in learning more about it. Could we have a conversation or meet for coffee? So, tip for the day.
Yeah, I'm going to add on to that. If the person has actually taken the time to go to one of your gigs or watch something that you've done, or oh, I saw you conduct such and such a musical and I would love to pick your brain, feels much better than I want to pick your brain. Okay, are you familiar with any of my work? Well, no, you're just person number 58 on my industry contacts list.
Or, hey, pay for my Kickstarter and I've never heard from you before. You know, support me in my work when I know nothing about you. So, and you had some other things about kind of personal networking and in the room. Like, so there's online networking and physical, like calling people, cold calling people, or just meeting someone on a gig and you're trying to network. And some things that kind of hit us as, don't do that. And I know we all say that we don't do that, but I'm probably guilty of it, and I'm sure you are too. But just to, you know, we lose connection on how we react emotionally to people because we're online so much and it seems so impersonal. So I know, like, you mentioned you had a story when someone walked up to you and kind of gave you a resume and then just stopped and walked away. It was like, what? So,
I feel, on one hand, I feel like I'm more of an introvert, and I used to hate going to anything where I would have to interact with people I didn't know. But I found a great thing is think of it as making friends and be interested in who they are and what they do. It was much scarier when I thought of it as, I got to sell myself to all these people. All right, I got which 5 things that I'm doing am I going to mention? So, in fact, here's my story of a recent example. I ran into a composer colleague at an event. We had met briefly before and said, oh, hi, a very nice guy, a super friendly guy. But for a 15-minute conversation, he just spent the whole time talking about what he was up to and himself. And I would say, well, that sounds great. Tell me more. Thinking, well, surely soon he's going to say, and how about you? What are you up to? And that moment never came. And then it was, all right, I'm going to get some wine. Bye-bye.
So we all do it. I guess the lesson is have integrity and be authentic. And the more and more digital we go, the less and less personal we become, it seems. And so I think in the music business, our friends are going to be there 20 years from now versus the guy we meet networking that we're trying to get a gig from in the moment. So look around you, connect with your friends, and really be authentic when you try to network with people. Like, do you want them as your friend or do you want them to give you something? So if you want them as your friend, you know, connect with them, be interested in what they're doing, take them out to lunch, give them a phone call, be of value to them. And if you're wanting to get hired by them, then that puts you in a whole different, if that's all they feel is coming from you, they're automatically going to be putting up a wall saying, oh, I got to keep my distance because that's really the one thing that they want. And I can see by their actions towards me that that's really all they want. They just want me to hire them.
It's sort of like being on a date and you can tell all the person wants is to get you into bed. And there's a ew factor.
So on that note, we hope you've walked away with 3 things today, knowing a little more about copyright and the organizations that are in the music business and how they operate. The second thing is
learning a little more about the weekly workflow of TV.
And the third would be a little bit about networking and putting a different perspective on being a musician and musicpreneur in the new digital age. And if you're interested in being part of the challenge, you can sign up at musician2musicpreneur.com. And I'll also post it here on this Facebook page. We start on Tuesday, and we're going to have a weekly class where we give information like this away to the students, as well as it's a mastermind class and a goal-setting class. So we want to feed the business side of you, and we want to feed the creative side of you. So we want to support you in getting work done, whether that be a creative work or getting your website finished. We want to hold you accountable and be your support.
And your goal can be anything you want. You can choose it. And don't worry if you don't have an idea of what it is yet, because we will help you.
We will. All right. Thanks for hanging out with us today. I appreciate the questions, and we look forward to seeing you in the future at Musician to Musicpreneur classes. Okay, bye-bye.
See you later.